So starting with the bias, folded on the bias, this outer edge of your collar is going to be actually on the fold. And you're going to start at center back. And you're going to probably need to place this a couple of times. But you want to get a straight line down center back with your pins and kind of just temporarily hold that into a position to bring up and around. That's the stand of your collar. And then you follow the black tape line that I've got, or you can do it with, you know, a pencil line as well. And then once you get it where you want it, you pin it. Pretty easy, huh? So sometimes this back part, it gets kind of thick. You might need to put a couple of tucks in there with your drape. It just depends on the angle of the collar that you get. But once you get that placed, you can go ahead and pencil in where the center back is. And then on this underneath part, you're going to pencil in the line of the tape or the edge of your fabric. Now this seam allowance here is 1/4 of an inch, okay? There's two ways you can finish the sewing. You can use the collar and overlock it together and kind of top stitch it into place underneath the collar so you don't see it. That would be a budget way of doing it. Or you can create a facing piece, which would be the better way to do it, okay? And I need to grab my scissor behind you, excuse me. Then, once you get the collar line that you want, I'm gonna get rid of most of this fabric because the seam allowance is underneath here. There's plenty of room there for seam allowance. Okay, then I have these two long strips here that I can use for my bow. And I can just, once I get to flat pattern, I can make it nice and even, but for now I'm just going to drape a bow for the look of it. And the bow can be the width of the design you want. If you want to try and make it single, if you have a fabric that's the same on both sides, you can make it like a soft bow and just baby hem the edges, or you can double it to give it a little bit more. So for example, on this fabric it's double. You can make it whatever width you want. Okay, so the longer one ultimately is going to be on this side of the dress. And even though it looks asymmetric at this point, it actually is symmetric. Both sides are the same, so you don't need to drape both sides. Drape one side. This side of the garment, the piece would sew to the edge. It comes around, it goes through an opening here on the side seam, and it comes around here and it turns into a tie, a wrap, okay? But for the sake of just the size of the bow, I'm gonna just sort of pin this into place right now. And then you can decide how long you want it to be. So as far as that, yeah, question?
Sorry. So that's like kind of like a faux?
Right like, now it is, just to get the proportions that you're thinking of, how wide do you want to make it. But as far as the measurement, I'll give you those measurements in a minute. I have them from last time. It's basically the waist measurement plus 18. So if you're going, well, it's not actually a whole waist measurement. It's from the princess line to the other princess line. So if it's 28, that might be, say, 23 plus 18, so about 41 inches on the long one. And then the shorter one is attaching to this side, and it just, you know, is the length that you want and the width that you want, okay? So, again, you can get that, that shape from your excess fabric just for appearances, and then the actual measurements will come into play when you get your flat pattern. So don't worry if your muslin isn't actually functioning yet. Okay, the other thing that you want, just make that look a little cuter. So you just get the size that you want and then decide if you want it single or double as far as the bottom part of your bow. Okay, then this next part is going to be the peplum. Now the peplum actually sews inside this tuck. Now earlier, remember we did a tuck, but we don't sew it like a dart. So make sure that you remember that, because a lot of students forget and they try and make it sewn like a dart. It's just brought together with a stitch. And underneath here where I have the seam allowance right here, that's what that next piece is going to join to. So let me find, is this the one? Yeah. So it's actually not center front, it's sewing to center front. So this is going to attach here to this piece. And when we drape it, it's going to fall gradually like a circle, almost a circle shape. So it gets the bias into the, by the time you get to center back, you're on the bias. Okay, you're starting with the straight grain together here. In order to get this to drape properly, you have to start, the textbook says 3 inches, and I found that actually 4 inches was better. So you want to start about 4 inches up so that as you're cutting it to let it fall, you have more fullness, okay? So I'm going to start with just attaching this at the waist level for now. And then as I move around toward the back, I'm going to clip and let the fabric fall into the waist. And then I'll go ahead and pin this into place and get rid of that excess so you have a better visual. But do you see how it's kind of falling into a flare as opposed to just a straight line of darts, right? You may have a little more than you need at center back, but basically you want it to fall into bias at center back. And I think part of the reason they give you these bigger measurements is some people might be draping with larger dress forms, so they give you a little extra more than you need for a size 8. Okay, then once I have the amount of flare that I want, I'm going to go ahead and just draw a line down center back and get rid of that excess. Now, this is a textbook design. I have seen students actually, instead of doing the circular shape, I've seen them do like pleated skirts at this level. If you wanted to, make it harder, go ahead and do that. But it does look nice. And then here, this is just to show, we're making the blouse. So we're gonna take this line down into the hem with a longer back and a shorter front. But if you want to make it a dress, instead of cutting this away, extend your center front panel when you make the pattern, and you can get a dress out of it instead of a top. I'm going to show the top so you get the idea. So keep it level to this point, and then depending on how long you want it, you just cut according to the length that you want, okay? All right, once you have that in place, you will mark your shoulder, mark your neck of your collar along the black line. Get the back neck here. Get where your waist is coming together here. So these two pieces are going to join with a 1/2 inch seam. This is center back, and this can have a seam or be on the fold, however you decide to lay your fabric. And here, this is going to be a 1/2 inch seam overlapping here with the front piece. So when this is tucked, when this tuck is in place, the pleat covers the seam. Okay, so that's the design of the textbook, exactly the way they have it there. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and work on this, and then the sleeve we'll do later on today. And that'll be the last part of the blouse. Okay, so you have 2 weeks to make it. You have next